So welcome back to Semicon West here in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm delighted to be joined by Melissa Gruppen Schemansky.
Yes.
Did I get that correct?
You got it pretty well, yes.
There you go. So Melissa, you are Chief Technology Officer for Semi.
Yes, I am.
That's a huge job.
It's quite interdisciplinary.
I would say so. There's a lot going on in your space. We went through, before we went on camera, we went through some of the different areas that comprise the entire picture of what you're doing, the areas you're involved in. So let's go through some of these. What are the highlights of the areas that you work on? If we start looking at some of the big picture areas that you work on, ranging from security, for example.
Yeah. Well, I run an organization that is called Technology Coalitions.
Okay.
And what these are industry alliances, so to speak, where industry members come together to collectively solve problems that are not solvable independently.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay.
And they may have dependence on other supply chain members outside of their specific product function or supply chain role.
Okay.
And some of the big ones, there's several rather new ones. First of all, harnessing AI. That is a large one. And
huge.
There's a couple of ways in which we're looking at this in coalitions. One is energy efficient computing.
Mm-hmm.
How do we ensure collectively that the industry can drive up that exponential curve to 1.2 trillion in 2030 without hitting a roadblock? So we want to anticipate. There will be bottlenecks.
Right.
So we want to proactively anticipate those bottlenecks and try to thwart them,
Right.
get over them on the way. So that way that the market can actually capitalize on that growth. Another part of AI is the utilization of AI in sustainable manufacturing and very efficient manufacturing.
Right.
And there's so many different layers in which AI enables that. So in our smart manufacturing organization or initiative or coalition, however you want to call it, we're looking at AI-enabled efficiencies to get to Industry 4.0 and 5.0.
So how's AI being implemented within these companies? I mean, the companies in the manufacturing process gather a huge amount of data, massive amount of data. Very often it's held in data lakes, there's so much of it, but then it's drawn off by the MES systems to make sense of it, to bring back actionable data. Some of that using AI. So how does SEMI fit into that?
Really good question, because a trade organization has to determine where they bring value in all of this.
Yeah.
When the data is owned by a fab, let's say,
Yeah.
they're very expert at driving that data into AI-enabled efficiency factors, such as loading their factory or scheduling their preventative maintenance schedules. The problem arises when the fab doesn't own the data.
Right.
There's where we have a little bit of a hiccup. So there's proprietary information that's supplied by the equipment manufacturers, let's say, where they might have digital twins of their module, their process module, but they don't necessarily want to share that internal data with the fab owner.
Right.
It's their IP. That's where a trade organization comes in. How do we enable the fab operations to employ an AI model without compromising the IP of the equipment maker?
Right. Yeah. The other person that might have ownership of it might be the OEM at the end. They might own some of the data too.
Absolutely. We found that the biggest problem is when you don't own the data.
Right.
AI engines are being developed in models in very sophisticated form when you own the data.
Right.
So we're trying to figure out ways in which these models can still thrive and connect different points together without compromising that proprietary data.
Okay. All right. So let's take it to the next step that you mentioned there, which was sustainability. How do you fold in sustainability into this process or this solution? I mean, do you offer best practice in the manufacturing. How do you fold in sustainability?
SEMI has an environmental sustainability initiative that covers a broad spectrum of items, including the entire scope matrix of emissions and waste and water. And we're also looking at an energy collaborative, which looks at the source side. Semiconductors is a great demand side of the equation,
Right.
but we're also looking at engaging in industry alliances to address the supply side of the energy equation. And that is all part of our environmental sustainability. But environmental sustainability is not on a different spectrum than economic sustainability and business operations sustainability. So that's where we bring those more environmentally specific topics into how do we use AI to build efficiencies into manufacturing.
But some of these some of that environmental legislation is going to be state or federal initiatives. So how do you deal with that? I mean, do you have a division that works with government, obviously, to try and talk about any legislation that's coming in that might impact your members?
Yes, indeed. There are, in numerous of our coalitions, we have an element that works with federal government, and not just the U.S. federal government.
Right.
Other governments around the world.
Right.
We do have to align with regulations, and we have to make sure that regulations don't conflict in their language that handicaps the industry. It's no different in environmental legislation, but same goes for cybersecurity. There are cybersecurity legislated frameworks around the world, and we need to make sure that we're consistent with those and that they blend with the industry's direction and interests as well.
Right.
Because if we don't build a solution that meets both sets of criteria, it will be non-sustainable, to use that word again.
No, you're quite right. I mean, absolutely. So it's important to try and have that level of advocacy at the government level, so that you can get ahead of some of that legislation that people are thinking of and bring them into the real world.
And working together, because there are common denominators. We're not at odds all the time.
Right, of course.
I run a number of public-private partnerships, too, in research and development. And the purpose there is to bring the government mission to the table,
Right.
line that up with industry opportunity or commercial opportunity, so that we can meet the federal government's mission and build a economically sustainable industry base or a commercial outlet, so that we can continue to sustain those businesses and provide those technologies to the federal government as they need them. Right. So it's a very win-win.
Right.
They do speak a little different language. They do have slightly different priority 1 and priority 2, but we determine the common denominator between the two.
Okay. So looking at some of your technology coalitions, we talked about briefly before we started, there's a large number of them in different areas that go throughout the industry. Your job is, or their job is, to identify some of the roadblocks and challenges that are in their specific area, where there may be some research needed, and your job is basically to bring partners together to try and work on that. That research.
Yes. Within my organization, I do have a number of subject matter experts that have industry experience, so that we can relate to our industry subject matter experts as they come in to illustrate an issue. But our real job is not to tell them the solution. No. Our job is to identify who are the stakeholders in this problem, bring them to the table, and get them talking in a common set of words and language.
Right.
Identify the problems, and then we try to instill a little bit of discipline in those discussions so that we drive toward tangible deliverables and solutions.
Yeah. And where do standards come into that? They come in. They come in after that, obviously, if needed.
you do have to get a fair way down the process development cycle in order to converge on a standard.
Right.
So there's a bit of engineering work before you get there. And these ideas that we're working on are at various levels of maturity. Some are very mature, already have a spec. We can drive it to a standard right away. Some of them need a bit more of background work to bring it to a standard. But as you know, SEMI does have a standards organization.
Of course, yeah.
We have over 1,100 some standards in the industry.
Yeah.
And that is a very tangible deliverable of these technology coalitions. It's
Yeah.
often one of the deliverables, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge amount of work, and it's fascinating. So, I'm hoping that we're going to be able to get a copy of your illustration here that we can show our viewers on the screen, and they can make some sense of all the different parts that go into the huge amount of work that you're doing. So,
Yeah.
congratulations.
You bet.
Yeah, Melissa, thank you very much for coming in and telling us about this today.
My pleasure. Thank you.